So let's get into this fruit of the vine. We're passing through the vineyard. This is our final pass through for now. Now, from now on, when you read this stuff, okay, like for an example, there's a scripture that says the foxes spoil the vines. And it's because it's like, imagine when you had those Japanese beetles came and they destroyed all the forests, one little nibble at a time. Well, the foxes go and they hide, but then they end up nibbling on stuff and they go potty around the vines and it ends up spoiling your vineyard. Okay, and so when you hear that stuff from now on, now like, oh man, we understand what a vineyard is. We know what it looks like. We know what the purpose is. We're going to see a bunch of pictures today, and I don't have a lot of time, and so get your Bibles. If you don't already have one, if you're using a phone platform, fine, but just get ready. Okay, and as this final pass, let's just go one last time. Let's go to Deuteronomy 8. I want you to be all totally, this will be something you need to memorize. Why? It was one of God's, not his only, but it was one of the major promises of the people of God. There's spiritual value for this. There is natural, real value, practical application, you would say, for why God chose to have these 7 species as an inheritance in the promised land, which is an archetype of heaven. Let's go to Deuteronomy 8. Brent, why don't you start us off? Deuteronomy 8, the famous verse 7 and 8.
For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs, flowing out of the valleys and hills, a land of wheat, barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, and a land of olive trees and honey.
Okay, so there's the 7 species. Okay, now when we're talking about the vine, that's what we are specializing in these last couple weeks. Here's the vine on the table. Again, we described why there are golden grapes. I want you to turn to John 2. Now, I told you that Jesus' first miracle ever was the fruit of the vine. He turned water into wine, but I want to tell you a little bit why he did that. Besides the fact that that was the first thing we saw from the promised land when Moses sent the spies, Caleb and Joshua and the other guys, and they came back carrying that large cluster of grapes. By the way, I'm going to show you just a couple slides, so when we get into this, we will have full understanding. Okay, let's go ahead and fire away when you're ready. I'll show you the first slides. Now, again, this is the temple facade. Okay, what you see here is a real, they call it a relief. It is a painted inscription. This is from Egypt back in, like 3,000 years ago, probably 3,700 years ago. What you're seeing here is vats. These are for the wine, the grape juice. If you ever heard the term new wine in the Bible, it's referring to 2 things. If it's translated correctly, new wine means it's newly fermenting. If it's translated incorrectly but closely, it would just mean grape juice, which they did also have just regular grape juice, okay? But this, what you're seeing here is the vine. You're seeing Concord grapes in the vines. And over here, you are seeing the press. The vat is overflowing now. And here they're holding onto ropes so they don't lose their balance and slip all over the place while they're crushing the grapes by foot, okay? So here's people plucking off the grapes, the clusters. They're coming here. They throw them in here. They're smashing the grapes. They're going in the vats, overflowing in here to these. Now, archaeologically, let me show you. Bless you. Let's go to another slide. These are vats. They really found these in real life, 3,000 years old. Here's some vats. They're all shaped. They have double handles like a jug. Imagine like a wine jug. The pointed bottom, this is to keep it cool when it sits in the sand and so it doesn't tip over. Okay, and also to prevent certain types of settling, which would allow for sediment on the bottom. Here's a modern-day cluster of Concord grapes. Okay, this is how you get chedim. This is how you get the real grape juice. Normally, when you drink Welch's grape juice, if it's just standard, it'll be white grapes or red grapes. If you want to get the real grapes, and Welch's has this, by the way, it's kosher, you got to use the Concord grapes or Sauvignon grapes or Blanc grapes. And those are all different types of species like the Concord grape. What you're seeing, the white on there, is yeast. And when they crush it, the yeast mixes with the sugar inside, and that turns into an alcoholic beverage. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Here is just an inside. Here's just some of the vascularity of the grape and the flesh. This is the part of the vine, the nutrient. Imagine the umbilical cord. And here is the seed, which obviously turns into a vineyard, okay? We are the people in here. It's like Give us grapes, awesome, but give us seeds, even better, because seeds turn into vineyards when God breathes on it and blesses it. And this is a cross-section of something that is, again, turns into jam, turns into jelly, turns into wine, turns into grape juice, turns into vinegar. Imagine how many applications: red wine vinegar, balsamic vinegar, Welch's grape juice, Welch's grape jelly, jam, grape candy, grape popsicles, grape everything, right? And here, this beautiful fruit of the vine. Let's go to the next one. Here is a vessel, just to show you. This is a libation. Now remember this vessel here for the libation offering, right? This pours out the water and the wine at the temple when you give the drink offering, right? Or when you take communion, it's wine or new wine, grape juice, and bread. Well, that's what was on the table of showbread in the temple. This is a vessel that they have created in Israel to pour out wine, but look what's all over the side. See these beautiful golden grape clusters? Okay? Grapes are a symbol of the promised land. Just remember that. The very first, you know how they say first impressions are everything? Because you see someone for the first time, it's like etched in your mind. You remember that. That's how you think of them. That's how you see them. Well, what we saw, our first glimpse of the promised land, the spies carried back a cluster of grapes. I'm going to show you that in real life. And again, these were not grapes the size of basketballs. I know sometimes artists draw it that way. That's fine. It's just not realistic. They're not cantaloupe size. Cantaloupes are cantaloupe size. Grapes are grape size. But a grape cluster, when it's blessed, is immense. Okay, I'll show you that. Let's go to the next slide. Again, here's a wine press, just so you see. Now, they found these. I'm going to show you. I'll show you some mikvahs today. It's the same process. One of them is for bodies of humans. The other one's for bodies of grapes and wine. They're all channeled into the rock. But this is something they found in Israel. Plenty of these and plenty of these jars, wine jars to fill with olive oil or water. We'll see some of that in our story in a minute. And wineskins. I'm going to show you this as well. We're going to unlock a few parables today. The treading floor is where they tread the grapes. The vats are where the grape juice, now this gets filtered with, it could be filtered with grape leaves, it could be filtered with thorns. Something has to stop the pulp of the grape from the juice, and then it comes into, they could use straw, hay, something like that. But the fermentation would only take 3 to 5 days, again. So just remember, the alcoholic process is way different in the old days than it is today. Let's go to the next slide. Here are some wineskins, real wineskins. They would be made out of goat skin, goat hide, lamb skin, lamb hide, cow skin, cow hide. They could be made out of stomach, very elastic. And we'll talk about that in a minute, about that parable, the new wineskins. Let's go to the next slide. Here's some old ones that they found, okay? Here is, they're sutured up. They have a plug or a seal. This could be a patch. Let's go to the next slide. They're all made out of what looks like leather again. Here's a beautiful vineyard. Now, as you can see, these grape leaves, they look, that's exactly how they look. They have a little kind of hair on them, a little prickly, and the grapes are, like I said, waxy. But these vineyards grow, and they build lattices for them, okay? They build lattices, which are wooden rails, and they let the vines just crawl all the way down. Let's go to the next slide. Here's another, look at this grape country. Now remember, this is what the promised land looks like. You're going from the desert, sand, 100 miles of sand everywhere, to these beautiful green mountains, green valleys, green everything, and green vines with fruit. There's no fruit in the desert. There's only sand, okay? Big, big deal. When you see something like this, ever been thirsty or gone hungry and go shopping? It's like, you know, you budgeted for 50 and you're at about 175, and it's like, man, same deal. I mean, you can imagine, this is worth fighting for when you see this type of stuff. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Also, beautiful grape country, and they're in rows, just like cornfields. They're in beautiful rows, and you can see there's green grapes. There's green grapes that turn blue. There's green grapes that turn bluish purple. There's green grapes that turn green, and there's blue grapes that turn blue and purple. There's different kinds. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is a mikvah. Now I'm going to explain this in our next parable. You're going to need to know what the olive looks, or the grape looks like, the grape vats, the grape press, and this is a ceremonial bath, a washing. This is actually found at Qumran, where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's just south of the south of Galilee, all the way to the tip of the Red Sea and the Dead Sea. It's right here. They found this. This is where they found all the scrolls, about 100 yards from here, okay, in 11 different caves. Let's go to the next one. Okay, and here we go again. Here's the temple. Remember also, in the Promised Land, we saw grapes, In the New Testament, the first miracle, we saw grapes, right? Wine. And the first time you go into the house of God, the first church, what do you see all over here? Golden grapes. You see a trophy of the promise and the blessing of God. And remember, the sign of our covenant is wine and grape juice, or grape juice and bread, right? Big deal. Big, big deal. No one goes to the Father but by me. I'm the vine, you're the branches. All of this, you could say, is temple talk, but Jesus is relating the presence of God, the headquarters of God's promise, his presence and his covenant with the fruit of the vine, and he calls you that, right? So you would know you are of the highest worth, of the greatest desire. Okay, let's do this now. Let's go to John 2. Thank you for those pictures. That will help us understand a few things here. John 2, 1 to 12. Amber, can you read that section of Scripture for us? Okay, so we see here Jesus turning water into wine. Now, this was not ordinary water. This was water used for ritual purification, like that bath I showed you. I'm going to get into this a little bit. Let me just read this to you. The word is called tivila. It's called purification in Hebrew. Is the act of immersion in natural sourced water, called a mikvah, or a bath, a ritual bath. In the Old Testament and other Jewish texts, immersion in water for ritual purification was established for ritual restoration of a condition of purity, ritual purity, or rather alignment, spiritual alignment, for you to enter into the house of the Lord. If you can imagine this, like you go to a grocery store, gas station, no shoes, no shirt, no service. You have to meet a certain condition of hygiene, of presentation, of purity before you can enter into the place. Sometimes you need a stamp, right? It's like sometimes you just need to do something, pay a due, join a club to get into the front door. Well, what the Lord was most concerned with is that, number one, we had joy. We're not afraid of anything. We're not unclean, and we're not filled with sin. Kind of the same things that we're dealing with in the church today. If you were in the Old Testament and you were unclean or impure, it didn't mean that you were wicked. It meant that you were in a temporary condition of misalignment. You had a flat tire, if you will, and you need to realign yourself through the protocol that God establishes, okay? And this was also, imagine if someone has the flu and they wear one of those masks on their face because they don't want to spread the flu or something like that. It's something like this where there's just certain criteria where people will go certain steps, measures, and precautions to make sure they are they need to meet the requirements of the atmosphere, okay? And what happens is, in the Old Testament, you could take a ritual bath and become clean for whatever the Bible said. Now, the Bible diagnosed all the protocol. I'll just give you an example in Numbers. It says, the priest shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. Now, anytime we're talking about ritual purification, tevila, it always has to be in a mikvah, in a special bath. Now, here's one thing that's cool. In Jerusalem, where the Temple Mount is, they found a path from the Temple Mount. If you follow it down to these mikvahs that you could fit like tens and tens and tens and tens and tens, if not hundreds of people, because sometimes you had to go to the mikvah before you could go to the temple. When you have a holy day, like 100,000 people in Israel, we got to make room for this event, right? And it's interesting that to show where the temple is, they found the mikvahs, thousands of gallon mikvahs, and they found the trail and they followed it. It went right up to the Temple Mount. It's beautiful. But it just shows, I mean, of course, what's written in the law, of course we're going to find that. God preserves his word. But the priest would be unclean until evening after he takes a bath. Another one in Leviticus 15:8, if one with a discharge, now this is talking about if I have a rash, if I have an open sore, an open wound, something hemorrhaging, if one with his discharge spits on someone who is clean, he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean till evening. So he has to bathe, and then he has to wait for time. There's a certain amount of time in a bathing purity. Again, in Leviticus 16:4, now this is the archetype of baptism. I want you to know this. I said one time, no other culture has baptism. No one even does that. Now the Jews, they didn't have baptism, but they had ritual cleansing. Okay? And a ritual cleansing was to become physically pure, whereas our baptism is a spiritual baptism, right? I mean, you can go into the water a wet sinner and come, or dry sinner and come out a wet sinner, but really what happens is you're born again. You bury one life in the water. It's symbolic of the grave of Jesus. Does it make you clean? Yeah, soap makes you clean, but it doesn't take away sin. So understand that those mikvahs, they really did make you spiritually pure at the time because that was the method assigned to them. It would be like saying if you pay the fee, you can come into the door, and there's no obstruction to that. If you meet the requirements, you are welcome to move forward. Okay? Whereas in the New Kingdom, the requirement is you must profess with your mouth, believe in your heart, and be baptized. It says that in Mark 16:16. Those who confess with their mouth and are baptized that Jesus Christ is Lord, they will be saved. And what the purpose of that is you put one life to death legally, and you start a new life. How do you do that? Through a spiritual bath, a mikvah. You go into the water of life that waters the earth, that we receive life to live, and you bury one life spiritually, you come out as another. But this also is a fulfillment of the law, because in order to be clean in the law, you had to go into the water. So when Moses brought us out of the wilderness, it says we were baptized through what? Through the Red Sea. We passed through the waters. In the New Testament, we passed through the Jordan. So the law is fulfilled. The concept is fulfilled that we still pass through the waters. But New Testament Christianity is the only culture that you are baptized once and for all. In Judaism, you had to get a bath every time you're spiritually unclean, got to head to the pool again, okay? Leviticus 16:4. Now remember, outside of the temple, there was actually a brazen laver, or called the Sea of Glass, or the Brazen Sea, the Molten Sea. It started off as a brass or brazen pot, if you will, a big one, and then it turned into a beautifully large one with 12 golden oxes. Solomon really did it up. But that was like a mikvah. It was for the priest to wash their hands. And some of that's very practical. I just slaughtered a lamb and I have blood on my hands. I have hair or stuff. I need to wash my hands. You wouldn't want anyone to go cut their hair and then fix you a meal without washing their hands, lest you have someone's, old hairdo in your provolone cheese, right? You would want them to wash their hands, okay? But there are limitations to this. Remember when Jesus showed up at the meal and the Pharisees didn't see them wash their hands, and they rebuked him. And he said, you guys make vain their tradition, or their law of God for the traditions of man. It's not what comes out of a man that makes him cleaner. It's what goes in, not what makes him unclean. It's what comes out of him, right? It's not what goes in a man what makes him unclean. It's what comes out of him. And Jesus was basically saying, we are all clean. Jesus, we were up on this. When it's time to wash your hands or wash your feet, that's very important. But remember, even when he washed their feet, it was for spiritual reasons. If I don't do this, you can't follow me, right? Okay, so here's Leviticus 16:4. I just want to give you some context that washing is good, but it's not, it's for purification. Your faith in Jesus Christ makes you clean, and you're baptized to prove that. You don't bathe to become ritually clean, whereas you did in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, you're ritually clean by your faith in Jesus Christ, but you are baptized as a symbol of that act of salvation. He shall put on the holy linen coat. By the way, this is talking about the garments of the priest. He shall put on the holy linen coat and shall have the linen undergarment on his body and shall tie the linen sash around his waist. See how they wore layers. And wear the linen turban. These are the holy garments. And he shall bathe his body in water and then put them on. So the priest had to take a mikvah every time he ministered before the people. And that's, again, before you minister to the Lord and are saved, you get baptized. So again, this is very The New Testament baptism is really dotting the I and crossing the T in the Old Testament requirements, but it's doing it with the right heart. So this is what's happening with that water. This is what it's used for, just so you know. Okay? Now, let's talk about, so that's the water. It's turned into wine. Now, is the water something internal or external in this context? External, right? It washes my body, washes my clothes, washes whatever. It makes them spiritually clean, or rather aligns my spiritual condition for preparedness to enter into the house of God. Let's go to 1 Timothy 5:23. Now again, remember, this is not Jack Daniel's number 5. We're talking about wine in the Bible that's like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% alcohol, right? This is like less than that fake beer that they used to sell at the grocery store. But here, nevertheless, it's made out of grapes, which are filled with antioxidants, and it's fermented. Every culture has fermented foods, okay? Koreans have kimchi. Germans have sauerkraut. Israelis have pickled fish. Italians have wine. It's like and they have other pickled things. They have pickled sausage and stuff. Everyone has pickled something. And if not, now they have probiotics to get those fermented enzymes. A way to cheat the process of fermentation is to boil stuff in vinegar, like pickles. They're like pickled. And the process of pickling is kind of like fermenting. You're like wine, you're aging it, but you're preserving it in an aged. It's kind of like hitting the fast forward button and then hitting the pause button. So you can capture it in that status. And in so doing, there's probiotics and enzymes that are very good for your system. Very, very, very good. Let's go to 1 Timothy 5:23. I want you to understand this. Now that I said that, now you understand what this is saying here. Paul is talking to Timothy. He had some type of ailment, okay? And here it is. It says, no longer drink only water, but use a little wine for the sake of your stomach and frequent ailments. He's using this for medicinal purposes, for the antioxidants, maybe for the digestion tract, maybe for anything that has to deal with the immune system. People do this now, like if you have gout, you drink cherry juice, and it's like almost miraculous. If you have joint problem, you get turmeric, right? So you get the concept. The context of using this wine is beautifully medicinal, okay, in that same context. But that's what? Internal. What's the water? External. Learn this lesson here. Jesus took something. I'll tell you why he did this. One, because he wants to come into alignment with the fact that the fruit of the vine is the promise, the sign of the promised land. The sign of the new kingdom is wine, right? The fruit of the vine, what you've now become. I'm the vine, you're the branches. You will bear fruit. What type of fruit does a branch and vine bear? Grapes. What type of grapes are in the temple? Golden grapes, trophy grapes, grapes that are deified. Do you know in the temple, most of the furniture was normal wood, which speaks of humanity, covered in gold, which speaks of divinity. Do you know anytime you get saved and step foot in the house of the Lord, it's like you covered in gold. There's a glory on you of the Holy Spirit, a joy. What's gold? It's shiny, it's valuable, it's beautiful. What do you think you become in Christ when you surrender your life? Beautiful and valuable, and you shine. You literally begin to emit light. You're the light of the world. Jesus took something external and he made it something internal. Okay? Think about the law. Think about the Old Testament was external. The Holy Spirit used to come on them like a bird on a fence. Okay? And then it left. The hand of the Lord came upon me and it left. Well, now the hand of the Lord is through me. It's in me. Here's the kingdom of heaven. Stretch forth your hand, right? It's now in something that was outside is now at hand inside. Jesus took something outside and put it inside. Let's take this a step further. Were the tablets of the law outside? I mean, they were inside the ark box, but they were outside, right? And what did Jesus do? He took the law on tablets of stone and wrote it on the tablet of your heart. He took something outside and he brought it inside. Jesus turned outside things into inside things. Beloved, this is such an upgrade. He made the temple outside, you, the temple inside. He now dwells within you. And all of this, all of his miracles, all of his words, they're all going to be congruent with his heart, with his message. So no wonder his first miracle is the same thing he's going to do with the old covenant, is make it internal. The same thing with the promises, the Holy Spirit, he's going to make it internal. Same thing with the temple, he's going to make it internal. I mean, this is really awesome. I want to show you now. Let's just switch gears just for a minute. I'll see if we can get through these real quick. Let's go to Jeremiah 31:29. Again, this is vineyard talk. This will all make sense. There are hundreds of applications to vines, vineyards, grape juice, grape wine in the Bible. Now, this is an ancient proverb, but an old sayings of the wise were always built on a truth. Okay? Someone saw it one time and then they said it, or people said it, and it had a meaning to it, right? I want to tell you about an ancient proverb. Now, by the way, the Lord didn't like this, or you'll read that in a minute. But if you understand the vine, I'm going to explain to you something here in a minute that will really make sense of this. Let's go ahead. Jeremiah 31:29.
In those days they shall no longer say, the fathers have eaten sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge.
Okay, so there's the ancient saying. Okay, let's go to Ezekiel 18:2.
What do people mean by quoting this proverb about the land of Israel? The fathers eat sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on the edge.
Okay, so what do you people mean by doing? Then it says, you will no longer say this proverb in Israel. It goes on to say, okay, mark that chapter. I want you to read Ezekiel 2-32, okay? We'll put it up on the screen on the video. I want you to read that right now. It's a little longer than we have time. I want you to read that because that basically talks about, here's what the proverb means, or the saying. If they say the fathers have eaten sour grapes, by the way, sour grapes are before they're fully ripe, before they're in the wine vat and they're fermented. When the children's teeth are on edge, there's two ways to interpret this. One, it's sour, and they go like this, which sour grapes are sour, okay? It's like those Sour Patch Kids or those sour candies. They're sour enough to really put a film on your teeth, and it's like, ugh, right? Good, but whoa. That's what they call it. It's something that could be irritating, uncomfortable, unpleasant. And in this saying, they're basically saying, we're paying for the sins of our fathers. My dad ate sour grapes, but I'm the one who's having this irritation. The other thing you need to understand is if you grow up on a grape vineyard and you eat sour grapes all the time, it's because there are two types of acid in the grape. And if you eat hundreds of grapes, which you would if you grew up on a grape farm, that acid on the enamel of your teeth would literally sharpen your teeth. It would put them on edge like a knife. The sugar in the grape and the acid in the grape, okay? Think about this. That would put your teeth on edge, okay? It reminds me, it's like someone works at a candy factory and they come out and smile and they're missing teeth, you know. You get the point, right? But basically they're saying is that my mothers and fathers have sinned and our teeth are on edge. And the Lord says, I don't like this parable. It's no longer going to be this way. Everyone will be judged for their own sins. You're no longer going to pay for what your mom or dad did. If you had to, this is a concept spiritually in the Old Testament called a generational curse. And it basically means if my mom or dad made some agreement with the underworld, whether by bad behavior, by physical agreement, if they were given over spiritually, or they were just disobedient or rebellious, then I would have to pay for that sin, okay, like a scapegoat. But because, blessed art thou, Jesus Christ, that's actually cut off at the cross, okay? Now, there are times when you were raised a certain way, and you need to appropriate that. It's called generational iniquity. It's when you learn behavior, or if there's something in your line that you have a propensity to follow after because of that concept, you need to appropriate it through repentance at the cross, and it is able to be defeated or broken. But this is what this proverb was all about. Remember, in the beginning, the Lord said, to those who love me, I'll be good for 1,000 generations, and to those who do evil, I will visit their iniquity to the third and fourth generation. This is where that proverb came from, or rather that saying. Okay? Let's go here real quick. Revelation 14:19. Again, this is so vast. The context of this, and I know this is not by any means exhaustive. What they call when you kind of exhaust the matter. There's a lot of territory we're leaving ready to discover. I'll say it that way. But for time's sake, we're passing through the vineyard on foot, like if you were on a tour. And whatever you can drink in, just drink it in during this time, okay? Because from now on, when you read the Bible and you hear vine, grape, wine, vineyard, vat, wine press, anything like that, you're going to understand exactly what you're supposed to by them using the context. Revelation 14:19, and it reads, okay, so the angel swung his sickle across the earth and gathered the grape. Now, by the way, how do you get a grape off the vine? You can pick it one at a time. Man, we don't got time for that. The harvest is coming. Take a stick with a curved blade on it and schlep it across as hard as you can. It will cut off the whole vine and all the grapes come into the basket at once. This is like efficient farming, right? This is what a sickle is. But this is again, here's in Revelation, and here is a metaphor using the grapevine in the harvest to talk about the end time gathering of souls. Let's read it again here. How about let's start in 17. Then another angel came out from the temple of heaven, and he too had a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, an angel who had authority over fire. He was called with a loud voice, and one who had the other sharp sickle. Put your sickle and gather the clusters from the vine of the earth, for its grapes are ripe. The angel swung his sickle across the earth and gathered the grape harvest of the earth and threw it into the great winepress. Remember, you saw that, dug into the stone, threw it into the winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood flowed from the winepress. So in this, we are the fruit of the vine. We're the grapes. We're being gathered. In this example, it's for judgment, and we're going to be trampled. Those who will be judged will be trampled, and the blood will flow. This is an example of an end times judgment using the metaphor of a winepress so you understand exactly what the Lord has in mind. Okay, let's quickly go to Matthew 9. Again, sorry for the rush. Matthew 9, 16 and 17. Go ahead.
Puts a piece of unshrunken cloth on an old garment, for the patch tears away from the garment, and a worse tear is made. Neither is new wine put in old wineskins. If it is, the skins burst, and the wine is spilled, and the skins are destroyed. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, so both are preserved.
Okay, I showed you the wineskin. It's like one of those water sacks made out of animal skin. When you put wine in there, it continues to ferment, okay? And what happens when things ferment? The gas, they swell, okay? Now, you know about leather. It can stretch out. You ever buy a pair of shoes that are too tight? You can stretch them out, okay? But if they're stretched out to the maximum, what happens if you go beyond that? They break, burst, tear, break, yeah. This is exactly what we're talking about with the wineskins. If you have wine in a wineskin, it continues to ferment, okay? And it will actually begin to swell and stretch, fine, okay? But if you drink the old wine or it's gone, then you put new wine into that old wineskin, it's already stretched out, it's kind of at the grace, and what happens, it can burst or pop. And that's why they say we don't put new wine into old wineskins. Also, this is a ploy on you and I receiving a new spirit, because if you're under the law and you receive a new spirit and you try to still fulfill the law, you just can't do it. You'll burst, you'll condemn yourself, you will judge yourself, you will beat yourself up all the time, you'll be living in defeat, living in shame instead of victory, but you need a new wineskin. How do you get that? Through faith in Jesus and through baptism. That's how the Lord gives you a new spirit, a new heart. And then what does he do? He takes the law outside and on the tablets of stone and writes it inside on the tablet of your heart. Exactly what he did, taking something for external cleansing, using it for your stomach's sake, for infirmities, to cleanse the infirmity, taking an external cleansing agency and making it an internal cleansing agency, taking an external law and putting it inside on your heart. Let's go to Mark 14:25.
Truly I say to you, I will not drink again of the fruit of the vine until the day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God.
Hallelujah. Jesus will not drink of this fruit of the vine again. Now he had it with the Passover. He took the cup and he said, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam kamutzi lachem men haaretz, for the bread, and the wine is Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. This means, blessed are you, like our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Blessed are you, Lord God, King and ruler of the universe, right? Let's address the Lord correctly, with all reverence, with all dignity. And he says, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam bogei puri ogafen. You have brought forth from the earth the fruit of the vine. And beloved, that's now what you are. you are also the branches to produce the fruit of the vine. And Jesus said, I will not drink of this again. I will not taste this until we come into the Father's kingdom. So we will literally, isn't this awesome? You first go into the promised land, what happens there? We see vineyards. Matter of fact, in Numbers 13, it says, these were the names, they went to spy out the land, and all of a sudden they came carrying, this is in verse 23, they came to the valley of Eshcol, cut down there from a branch a single cluster of grapes and carried it on a pole. First thing you see about the new kingdom? Grapes. First miracle Jesus does? Grapes. You get saved, you keep the communion, Passover meal? Grapes. What happens the first thing you do when you get to heaven? After the judgment? What did Noah do? He lands the ark. Okay, let's establish communication first, right? Let's get the microphone set up so we can talk to God. What's the next thing he does? Plans a vineyard. What's the first thing you're going to do in heaven? Enjoy the supper, the wedding supper of the Lamb. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to have the fruit of the wine with Jesus. I talk about first, everything firsts. For some reason, well, we know it's because it's amazing, it's sweet, it's valuable, it's beautiful, it's precious. But there is a symbol God wants you to know. You don't go into the temple before you pass the grapes. You don't go into the kingdom until you have communion, until you have the cup. Do this in remembrance of me. If you want to remember Jesus, you want to have a relationship with him, you have the fruit of the vine. The first thing you do, when I come into my kingdom, we will have the fruit of the vine together, right? Powerful. And this is one of the first of the 7 species. Remember, this is the very promise that lines our promised land. It's the same in heaven. You know, there's grapes in heaven. If there's not, how could we have wine with the Lord? Very powerful. So, the ultimate drink offering. Remember, the libation offering is when they take the fruit of the grape and they pour it out going, Lord, you alone are worthy to receive this. Your promise is amazing. We are in a place that used to be dry and lifeless, and now we're filled with vines and blessings and covenant. The same covenant that blessed Abraham, our father in the faith. Jesus said, I am the vine. You're the branches, which means he is the real vine into the presence of God. But I want you to know that the ultimate libation, the ultimate sacrifice is when that vine empties its fruit for you and me. Right? So we can be saved, so we can taste of the promises of the kingdom that the King has promised us.